zone. They were agricultural properties, Cunningham Farms, and then an agricultural property on Belfast Road. And you described the situation as, both of those situations as win-win situations, because you felt that with upzoning, it would be a win-win because the greater density, development density, would create value, and you indicated that those two landowners, the one on Belfast and the one on Stockton Road, would then turn around and put those properties in conservation easements. And I was just looking for an update on those two properties to see whether they had actually put those properties in easements.
Well, for starters, it's not upzoning. I gave them back what was taken away. And as far...
you did create great development, regardless of what the nomenclature is.
Okay, but I know what the question is, and I will answer the question if you let me.
Go ahead.
Okay, Stockton Road, the MET has been filed, and it also was approved. And Mr. Constable, part of one of the conservancies, is aware of this, and they are just waiting for the paperwork to go through. That's it. That one is done. The other one on Belfast Road, the filings for the agriculture easements have been filed, and they're working out whether it's forest conservation on half of it and agriculture on the other half. So they are in process. But as you know, with the bureaucracy of Baltimore County and the state of Maryland, these things do take time, but they are in process, just like I said they would be.
Well, they...
Well, let's get another question.
One
Excuse
point
me.
that I would like to add is that they are on the Baltimore County SB 236 list for 30 and 34 houses respectively.
Correct. Just so everybody here understands, and most people in here are for property rights, which I stood for, and that's why I got elected. But just so everybody understands, in order for an MET to be processed or for an ag easement to be processed, you have to show the fact that the property can be developed. You have to show the need to offset for the ag easements. That is why you see the filings, because they have to show that it's developable. They're not going to put an ag easement on a piece of land that's not buildable. If they can't perk on it, if you cannot put any kind of development on it, they're not going to give them an ag easement. That is why it's set up that way.
Well,
You have to show the value, period.
Excuse me, ma'am, why don't we go to another question? We can't just have a two-way dialogue for the rest of the evening.
Well, I have one more question.
Is this the last one?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you feel that it's ethical to create greater development density so that a property owner can get additional state funding?
I'll be glad to answer that question.
Dollars at
When the
owner's
land,
expense?
when the land was taken away, when the value was taken away from the people that owned it, I felt the need to give it back to them so that they could follow the process and be under a permanent easement. So yes, I agree.
And was that?
No, excuse me. Let's go to another lady over here.
I have a question for you,
Sure.
Mr. West.
Yeah.
Just wondering what your stance was on the minimum wage increase.
Okay. If I were in the legislature, I would vote against it. My feeling is, and there was just a study done recently, which hasn't been very widely reported, that the effect of the minimum wage is to depress by 25% the growth in employment. So if employment is growing, for example, at 2%, by raising the minimum wage, you'll reduce it to 1.5%. We multiply that times all the people. That's a lot of lost jobs statewide. Furthermore, there are very few people that are full-time employed who make minimum wage. Most of the people who make minimum wage are high school students, college students, old retired people who want to supplement their income, but there are very few people whose income is entirely dependent on minimum wage. And the last point is minimum wage inevitably causes prices to go up, because most of the businesses that have to pay it have very little profit margins as it is, and if they have to pay higher wages to the employees, they have to raise their prices. So we're going to see inflation.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question for you also. What would you like to do to help small business?
Oh, boy. Well, first of all, we need a regulatory system in Maryland which is predictable and fair. The key thing is that it's predictable. If a person is going to invest, if an entrepreneur is going to invest money to start a business or to grow a business, the entrepreneur isn't about to do that if he or she is fearful that the regulations will be changed in a freakish manner at some point and put them out of business. So we need to have a fair regulatory system which is predictable and understandable by the voters or by the business people. Further, we need state bureaucrats who administer these regulations who are responsive to the voters. I almost think that the legislators ought to at least be part-time ombudsmen to represent their constituents in interfacing with the state bureaucracy in order to make sure that things happen promptly rather than drag and drag and drag. As Todd said a few minutes ago, dealing with the state bureaucracy sometimes takes years. The next thing we need is we've got to reduce the corporate income tax rate. From 8.25%, I would take it immediately from 8.25% back down to 6%, which is what Virginia's is. So we no longer lose businesses to Virginia. And then the final thing, of course there are lots of others, but the third main point is many businesses are not corporations these days. They're LLCs, or they're sole proprietorships. And if that's the case, where they pay their taxes is through the personal income tax rate. And the personal income tax rates have gone up dramatically under O'Malley. You'll find in my brochure, I support a bill which is currently pending down in Annapolis. Some of the Republicans have signed on to it, some of them have not. I support it to reduce income taxes across the board 10% over 3 years. Seems to me that's doable. Some people are calling to eliminate the income tax. I just don't think that's, in the real world, that's not going to happen. But a gradual reduction of 10% over 3 years, I think, is doable, and it will benefit not only businesses, but also all of us who have to pay our taxes. Next question.
Where do you think the fat is in the budget that you would take out if you have reduced revenues based on what you're saying?
Well, let's just, the question, I don't know if you heard it, the question is where's the fat in the budget that would be taken out? To begin with, if we help businesses, we're going to find a growing economy, not a shrinking economy. And we won't be losing 10,000 jobs in the month of January as just happened. And with a growing economy, the economy generates more tax revenues. But even at the lower tax rates, it'll generate more tax revenues. But there's still so many areas in which the state of Maryland has wasted money. I think Dr. Robinson talked about this. The Washington Post last week, normally on their editorial page, they'll use words like debacle. In this case, it was on the front page in the headline of the Washington Post. The headline of the Post called Maryland's Insurance Exchange a debacle. And then if you read the article, it talks about how they have now spent $260 million. That's over $250 million of money, of our money, on this debacle. And there are moves underfoot to deep six the whole thing, to toss it away and to substitute the system that they're using successfully in Connecticut for the system which is not successful here in Maryland. So that would be a huge $260 million write-off, as it were. Now, I don't think, realistically, that's not going to be announced until after the primary is over, because Mr. Brown, who is in charge of the whole thing, hopes to win the Democratic nomination for governor. And if they decide to throw the system away before the primary, that would be a very embarrassing for him. And if he wins the Democratic nomination, I'm fearful it won't happen until November. But before all is said and done, this system in Maryland, which is not working, which has cost so much money, is going to be replaced by a system which does work. Yes, right here.
You both spoke about air conditioning schools. In the past, when they talked about air conditioning schools, it meant they air conditioned everything but the one facility that was used 24/7, and that's the gymnasium. Will the gymnasiums and the activity rooms be air conditioned from now on?
To be 100% honest, I'm not sure. I mean, we can find that out. I believe originally you're correct, they did not. A lot of it has to do, I guess, with ventilation systems and all that they have in the gymnasiums. But you're right, it would be a great idea, but we can definitely find out for you.
I don't know the answer specifically to that either. I will say that the the system the school that Baltimore County Public Schools has used to rank and prioritize the schools for air conditioning doesn't make sense in a lot of respects. Our children go to an elementary school built in 1990 that lacks air conditioning. Baltimore County Public Schools ranked that last on the list because actually part of it had air conditioning, the rest did not. You would think that that school would be higher on the list because it's easier to air condition because it's a newer school. A lot of the ductwork should be in place. I will say that the county council members are regularly challenging this superintendent to look at things and to do things better. One area clearly that needs to be challenged, I think, has been that air conditioning priority list, which doesn't make sense in a lot of respects.
This is for Councilman Huff. Prior to the 213 General Assembly session, you were asked to write a letter of support for a hybrid school. You didn't. Can you explain why?
The four of us on the council did.
Not in 213, Councilman.
2012, whenever the letter that myself and my colleagues sent down to Annapolis, we did sign it. So I don't know which letter you're talking about.
Well, I'm specifically talking about when Julie Sugar and I met with you in your office. Right. Asked you to write a letter in 2013.
But we did it as a cumulative letter. There was four of us that did it.
No, there was a letter that was done in 2012. The bill was unsuccessful in 2012. We wanted to reinitiate the effort in 2013.
Okay. The answer, I have no idea. I mean, we were in support of it. At least most of us were on the council. So, I mean, it's done and it's passed.
Okay, next question. Yes, lady here.
This is for Councilman Huff. How do you feel that you represent your district when you ignore a petition that has over 1,100 signatures against Fieldbrook development, York and Field?
I don't do that. On the Fielder project, a lot of things, some of the information that was being actually given out to the people that the signatures were obtained from was not all the facts and the figures of what was going on. And I know this because of the fact that I do have a lot of friends and family and all that live in that community. And what was presented to them was not all the true facts. The property eventually was going to get developed, and it was major manufacturing. And with the traffic studies and all, which is the biggest #1 issue there, the traffic studies proved, without a doubt, that it cuts down the traffic by 2/3 for residential as opposed to major manufacturing. And not only that, throughout this whole entire process, which now has the support of Sparks-Glencoe Association, that we've gotten it down to 73 townhomes. It's 200 feet away from York Road so that you will not see it from your house. Then you have not seen the latest plans.
No, I'm sorry. I've spent $20,000 litigating this, so I know what I'm talking about. And to say that the people who signed the petition did not have the correct information is false. That is a personal attack on me because I did most of the door knocking and we gave them the facts. What can you say specifically was not true about what we told them? Say specifically what was not true.
Basically, on what was going in there, a lot of the reports said there was going to be over 300 townhomes
No,
and
absolutely
condos.
not.
I'm telling you,
absolutely not.
So.
You are getting that is outright not true.
Well,
Okay.
let's not get into an argument
Okay,
between
but
the
I
two
want
of you.
to say
Because there are a
that-
lot of people that have questions.
Okay,
Let
but
the
I want
councilman
to
finish
say
his
that, I
answer.
want to point this out, and I know that some sections of those townhouses will be much closer to York Road at the northern end. So I just want that to be clear. I do not appreciate having my efforts and the people that try to get something done correctly.
Well,
It's being
I-
misconstrued by 300. That was never, I can show you the petitions that they signed. There was nothing in that petition that said that. So please, wherever you're getting that information, you better check their integrity. That's all I have to say.
I have another remark.
No, you've already asked about 5 questions. Let's ask this guy here.
But he made a statement of fact. He
Well,
said it was
excuse me,
major
let-
manufacturing.
Yes,
It was ML, which is
Right.
manufacturing light, and RC6, which is a conservation zone.
Right.
So when he says that people were given factual misstatements, that's not correct, and he just made a factual